Hello, people. Got a couple things planned for this video. First, I like to talk about Gene Barillo. Gene Barillo was supposed to be in court today, and he was going to accept a 6-month sentence. And the agreement was that if he accepts the sentence, that basically they would drop probation once he gets out. Of New York, they postponed it and they pushed it back. They pushed it back up. And so now it's still an open case. I just wanted to share that because it was supposed to come to an end today. He was going to take the 6 months and go away, then come back out and have no probation and be able to go back to doing what he used to do on YouTube. But it didn't happen. Nothing ever works out the way you think it's going to work out when it comes to the New York City court system. But anyway, just thought I'd share that with you just in case anybody was wondering. Also, I watched Sammy Gravano's final tape of this season. His final video of this season. It was by far the best video I've seen him do yet because it was it made you really think about a lot of things. And I'm going to state my opinions now, and this isn't an anti-Gotti or pro Gravano or vice versa thing. This is my opinion, and I'm going to give my opinion. When John Gotti was caught on those tapes, and he was blasting the hell out of Sammy Gravano, not only was he doing that, but he was also convicting himself. He basically said in those audios that he ordered the murders of people, that Sammy was involved in some of those murders, and he had a lot of very negative things to say about Sammy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into playing some of this audio under the Fair Use Act. So I'm going to play it and hope it sticks. But this is a very, very good audio that, this is a very good video that Sammy did because it really gets into how he felt. And, you'll hear lots of times that Sammy's a rat. He's the biggest scumbag on the face of the earth. And, I was one of those people for many years that thought that. But I really have a problem with this audio that they had on John Gotti because he said so many horrible things in it. And then there's other people now trying to push these new scenarios. That's the great thing about the mafia genre. They're always trying to push new scenarios, like Sammy Gravano and John Gotti was not at the shooting in New York of Castellano. There's other things too, basically trying to change history. But we're going to get into this, and you guys can tell me what you think. But I think that whether you like Sammy Gravano or not, he makes some very legitimate points here that really have to be considered. And some people may not want to hear that. Listen, when it comes to John Gotti, he was the ultimate gangster. He did what very few people could do anymore. The old timers, yes, they would go to prison and they would do their time. And John Gotti always knew that he was going to go to prison someday or be killed, and that he was going to have to stay in prison like a man for the rest of his life, which he did. That is not a knock on John Gotti anyway. But when it comes to speaking too much and putting his foot in his mouth and saying a lot of things he shouldn't have said, let's not like put this guy on a pedestal where we don't talk about the mistakes that he made. The mistakes that he made in those audios were immense. I mean, that was a rumor going around that Sammy made some too. Until I hear those videotapes about Sammy, I don't believe it. Play them, please. If somebody has those audios, or if the FBI did something with them, if there's a Fair Use Act, get a hold of them. Play them. But I just don't see it. And I'm going to start this from a certain point of what Sammy's saying, and then I'm going to stop it and dissect it a little bit, and we can take it from there. Okay, but let's start right here. 1 minute, please. Nothing ever goes perfectly. It's
John Gotti said something a little funny. It was funny. He said, Sammy, that's all you got in your fucking pocket is $50? I wasn't about to tell him that I gave it to Frank and Maddie, but I said, yes, that's all I got. He said, remind me, when we beat this case, I got to give you a... The agents laughed, the cops laughed. It was fun. It was fun. It really was. John had that way about him with these cutesy remarks, stuff. So it was cool. We were brought into MC. We were brought on the 9th floor. In this one section, there's 8. Tommy Karate was in his cell. Cassio was in his own cell. Me and John were put together in one cell. And there was a few other guys in the other cells. That's how this whole prison thing started.
You know that's a strategy 100% by the FBI to put them together in a cell, because they know that Sammy is going to be really pissed when he knows about these tapes and everything that John Gotti said about him. So he wants to put them together. I'm going to be surprised if they're watching it somehow, but they did put them together. When you think about it logically, why would they put two guys like that together in the same cell? It really doesn't make sense unless the feds had a reason for doing it. And it's quite obvious they had a reason for doing it.
When we went to court, the government said that we want to hold them. These 3-man society. The judge gave us another appointment for a bail hearing. A week or so, whatever it was, went by, and we had another hearing. At that hearing, the government said a few things. The judge said, he pointed to me. He said he was on trial in front of me. I gave him bail. He attended court every time he was supposed to. At the end of the trial, before the jury said guilty or not guilty, he was there, stood there, knowing if it was a guilty verdict, he would be remanded. So why wouldn't I give him bail? How is he a threat? And all of them, how are they a threat to society? Prove it to me. At the nexus, put the government in an awkward position. They had to prove something to the judge, or he was letting us out on bail. That's the first time we heard the tapes and what was said on the tapes. The tapes were so fucking explosive, it was incredible. John is talking about murders. He did, we did. You name it.
So think about this. These guys have been in prison now, in jail now, for a week. And they've been in the same cell, getting along great. No issues whatsoever. And Sammy has no idea that they're about to drop this bombshell of these tapes in which Gotti's in them and saying horrible things about him. So just picture that. You're there, and all of a sudden you hear this man you idolize, this guy that you love, and you think he's like a brother, and then you hear these tapes.
He talked about it. We're now indicted on at least 4 murders each. Well, Frankie LaCasio was indicted on 1 murder. I was indicted on 3 or 4, and and conspiracy to murder, RICO racketeering, everything you could think of. John had all of those charges, including the Castellano hit and tax evasion he had. I didn't have a tax evasion. So there was a multitude of.
And that's very important to understand. And this is something I didn't realize, that they had the tax evasion they were going after him for too. And so, this is a man that listed himself as a plumber, working as a plumber, and making a couple $1 million a year, or a plumbing service. But yet, all this money was coming in. It was going to be very easy to get him on the taxes. At this point, whether Sammy testifies or not, John Gotti is screwed. Sammy Gravano is screwed, and Frank Locascio is screwed because of the stuff that's on that tape, on those the tapes that Gotti was speaking. And not only that, in some of the tapes, Gotti was speaking to Locascio. So they were all in trouble at this point. It really didn't matter. It was going to be hard for any of these guys to beat this case at this point.
Charges against him. And the tapes really explained it all. A lot of the things that Dickie Scarfo told me, good looking Jackie, the Watts, all of these suspected little things that I put away were coming to light. The things he was talking about on the tape of me killing my partners and taking over their businesses, killing people and taking over unions, nothing was true.
Here's where I got to disagree with Sammy. Quite a few of those things were true, but John Gotti shouldn't have been talking about them out in the open like that. As for them being on tape, people should have been more careful. But this is how a lot of these gangsters go down. It's an egotistical thing. It's they just speak. They like to talk. That's all they do is they talk and talk and talk. And this is why you always have so many get caught on tape, because they don't know when to be quiet.
So where was this coming from? Why? If it was true, it's one thing. He fucked up anyway, but not true. I questioned him right then and there. Where the fuck is these stories coming from, bro? What were you talking to Frankie about? Frankie apologized to me right in front of him, and he tore into Frankie. Don't you fucking apologize for me, and you don't apologize to him. I'm the fucking boss. Frankie knew. Most of that on the tape was a lie. Time just had a way of bringing out what was true, what was fake. That's how we started out with it. John knew I was fucking steaming. A relationship that was so strong and so powerful, we had the entire mafia shaking, fell apart on the tapes. When I looked at him, I said, oh, to my face, you love me. Up behind my back, you had other plans. You didn't love me so much.
You can hear, when you listen to Sammy talking about this, you can hear that he's really upset because he had this deep respect for John Gotti as a buddy, as a friend. And he is absolutely shocked that all this stuff is coming out on these tapes. people can say what they want. They can try to clean this up the best they want. But the fact is this: the tapes were made, and there were horrible things said on the tapes. You can't change that. And those tapes is what directed how this whole entire case went, and who would flip and everything else. It set the path for everything.
There's so many stories in while we were in prison. Obviously, everybody knows I eventually cooperated. But I didn't cooperate for 11 months. We got busted in December. The following November, I cooperated. That story will come. But before I get to that,
and that's a very good point. Just think about it. This man is sitting in prison here with John Gotti for 11 months, well, 10 months, knowing that John Gotti said all these things on the tapes about him. How difficult was that for him to be in the cell knowing that this man who you worshipped said all these things about you?
I'm going to tell you what the 11 months was like. I'm going to tell you everything that happened. Now, I may misquote a date or a time or a minute or an expression, but I'm telling you right now, 99.9% of it, I remember it like it was yesterday. I'll tell you why. That was the worst 11 months I ever spent in prison. I spent 22 motherfucking years of my life in prison. This was the worst 11 months. You didn't want to go to prison. But I'll get to all of that. But first, all of these stories, one by one. Some of them you heard already. Some of them I'm just going to have to repeat. A lot of them you haven't heard, I'm sure.
So walk me through the process here. When you feel real good and guys, what's happening behind the scenes with your family with the logistics?
What we talked about earlier, nobody wants to be the lead of this thing. What he did to it, he's got the mafia on Front Street. This is the result of what he did. There's nobody want to step to the plate. Fuck that. I ain't going near that. There's no rush to anything. There's a little bit of a shock. The whole fucking administration. John, Sammy, even Frankie LaCascio was in a high position, even though he was only in an acting position, but he's still in a high position. They were all gone. Who's going to run this? Who's going to do it? But they're not all that concerned. A lot of them are happy that they got them. Hopefully the heat and everything just levels off with them. I want to stay the fuck out of it.
So pretty much what Sammy's saying here is the people on the street, the Gambinos that were left on the street, were happy that John Gotti was in the joint because of the unnecessary pressure that was being brought down on the Gambinos from him being out in the public so much, flaunting, basically giving the finger to the federal government. And there was such a huge amount of pressure on the whole organization at that point. So the guys out in the street are thinking that, well, these guys are gone, so we're safe. But what they didn't realize, was just the beginning of the end. The whole entire empire was going to come crumbling down, basically based off a set of tapes and a boss that was just too far out there in the public eye.
I don't want to run it. I don't want to do nothing. That's the mentality right now. Now, what he does on visits, he'll make a committee to run the family, but to not run it. He don't want nobody to run that family. He wants to run it. He puts a committee so they'll say, this is what John said on a visit, or through a lawyer, or whatever. And he gives direction on who's saying or doing what. This is where I think his son maybe becomes part of that committee, which don't even go wrong. There's guys who, they don't even want to be out there. They don't want to do nothing. They want to get the fuck away from it. This is an explosion that blew this fucking building, this building. 20 stories up in the air. You think the neighbors are going to come here and say, let me see what's what? They want to.
And, that's a great point that Sammy's making here, is the fact that John Jr. is being pushed out here, and they wanted to put his face out there to clean up a mess. I'm sure John Jr. most likely was like, "What the hell? I don't want to be here. Who wants to be here?" Because they know all the pressure coming down on the Gambinos at this time. Not only the Gambinos, all the families, but especially the Gambinos. It's all coming down on them. Nobody really wants to be in charge of this mess. It's like putting someone in charge of a restaurant going out of business, and you're just waiting time. That's it.
Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. I'm totally shocked because the feeling I had, he must know nothing's happening. Or he wouldn't make me come there. You got me on the land for 2 months. I know you wanted me to kill Chen. So, I mean, it's over. Maybe the thing is washed out. We didn't even have a chance to talk about it because we're in a club. So we'll get to it. You know, let's get coffee. Let's do this or that and the other thing. Don't know nothing yet. When they come in, I know it's over. When I'm here, I know this is it. And Frank and Maddie are telling me point blank, you ain't coming out, bro. This is heavy duty. The news media wasn't outside the Raven night. It was by the MCC. They must have called them and told them be there. They didn't know where it was that we were going to get. I don't think they.
The feds knew they had him. They knew there was no way out. The hole was dug. It was so deep. Whether Sammy testifies or not, they're all going away. Sammy testifying just put a 100% guarantee instead of a 99.9% guarantee that these guys were going away.
They didn't know yet in front of the club. But when we got to there, it's only a couple of miles away, they were there. They must have called them and said, there's a pinch. As soon as they got us, meet us over here. They had them on call, so to speak, probably. Because when we got there, only a couple miles away, they were all there. There was cameras, there was everything. Everything on the tape is a lie.
Okay. At that point, it makes you wonder, what do you think? I mean, there's a possibility.
All of what Nikki said would.
Sorry about this.
Jackie said what Joe Mott said. This is put that all together. I'm assuming I know what the fuck is going on already. The betrayal, once you're betrayed, I know what it is. Did heart sink? Yeah. That's what it felt like. I don't know how to explain that, but that's what it felt like. It's over. The betrayal is when you love someone.
You see what Sammy's smartly doing is he's taken the betrayal, which used to be him, the rat, and he's kind of flipping it out. He's flipping it right here. And there's a huge percentage of people that watch his show now that don't remember anything about back in those days. I mean, they're in their 30s and they were kids or they barely remember anything. And what Sammy's saying is, I ratted because of the tapes. And whether people agree with that or not, a lot of these young people here that watch him and stuff are going to believe this. And even some of the old timers are like, why did John Gotti do this? Why did he speak so viciously about Gravano on those tapes?
Somebody, respect them. You don't never expect a betrayal. We're loving each other. I mean, I don't know how to explain that.
And how long does it take for you to start dating John Gotti? Is it immediate or does it take? It takes 11 months, right?
No. It's immediate. It's a fucking immediate. It's the shock is right there. But I immediately start to know what's happening. Now, does it get worse and worse with time? Absolutely. But here's what I'm going to say, and I mean this from my heart. I'm so fucked up with this betrayal. It struck me so bad. I'm not even Sammy the Bull no. I'm paralyzed with shock. If I'm normally Sammy the Bull, I killed this motherfucker right in there. I'm with him. I got him at one point. He's right under my nose. I'm a stone cold killer. Now,
what he's saying here is very powerful. He's saying that he's paralyzed. He's not Sammy the Bull no more. He's like shocked. He's shocked that the man that he loved basically did this and turned on him with those audios.
if you look at this thing, I'm not on tapes. I'm not on nothing. This motherfucker is dead. They got a problem with this case. I would know that. The normal Sammy the Bull would know that. One. Two, I don't even care anymore. If I thought that way, I'm going to do life. I'm never going to see the street. One more body, his body, what's the fucking difference?
Okay, people. I just wanted to play that for you because I thought it was pretty powerful. I wasn't going to even do a show. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to even do a show today based on this subject. But after I watched that video, I found it a very powerful video. And you could see whether you believe Sammy or not. And it's obvious that Sammy has a tendency to tell stories or add on to them. But there's one thing that we cannot deny, that those tapes were made, those audios were made of Gotti saying those things about him. I guess anybody, ask yourself, no other gangster has really ever been put under that pressure where they know their boss said a whole bunch of stuff about them. And now they have to decide what they're going to do. I mean, it was just one bad thing after another. It started with the Castellano hit. It started with Rogerio being allowed to live, despite the fact that he did everything he did with the drugs and got caught on audio himself. There were so many mistakes made between the Rogerio time to the very end, including the Castellano hit. If you really look at it, these were all big mistakes. And eventually the mob was going to become crumbling down to its knees, all five families. It was going to eventually happen. But with the Gambino family, it happened much quicker because of poor leadership and very bad things done, starting with the Castellano hit all the way up until they got arrested for the very last time. And also, another thing is when Sammy came in to meet John Gotti and they were arrested by the FBI a couple minutes later, did John Gotti know he was being arrested? Why did he call Sammy in? You know, wouldn't it have been the best thing to do? Tell Sammy to stay away, take the pinch, and then you got Sammy out there. I guess that in the end, John Gotti didn't trust Sammy at all. And I guess he figured if he was going down, Sammy had to go with him. Who knows? Nobody really knows. Only those guys know. But everything that was that happened with the Gambinos toward the end, self-destruction. That's exactly what it is. Well, people, if you have not subbed to this channel yet, please sub. You're only going to get good content. And that's what I've been putting up and continue doing. I have some more interviews coming up, really interesting stuff. Please like this video if you have not liked it. And thank you very much. Take care, everybody.